Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 40 of the Fantasy Timeline, proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. We are short a host, a guy that's used to doing all the talking, so here I am going to try to be the master of ceremonies tonight. We have Drew taking the place of Josh tonight. Drew, welcome.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, nice to have you back. We also have Russ, Dynasty Outhouse, on. Welcome, Russ.
Hey, thanks for having me on. First time I'm listening to the show, so look forward to it.
Well, good. I'm glad. I'm hoping you take over for me pretty soon, so we'll see what happens. Rocky, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm just excited to be here with the star of the show, Drew. He's been killing it. I love it. Good job, Drew.
Yeah. And our special guest for tonight, Casey, the Casey Kasem. Welcome.
Howdy. Hey.
So happy you're here. I love the Biggie poster in the background.
Thank you.
That makes my heart happy. All right, so let's just talk about the news a little bit. Try to get through it pretty quickly, and then we'll see what's going on Twitter. The NFL opt-out was last Thursday, and there didn't seem to be too many even name players, especially on the offensive side. Is there anybody that anybody is excited about now that someone opted out, maybe in front of them, or it's providing an opportunity for someone?
You got to give the full number of opt-outs.
Oh, yes. And there was a very nice 69 opt-outs.
There you go.
Nice.
Yep. So is there anybody you guys are excited about because of the opt-outs?
I mean, clearly Clyde Edwards-Helaire is now a good running back just because Damian Williams isn't there.
Sure. Yeah, I guess that's the obvious one that I didn't even think about. But let's remove him out of it. Drew, you got anybody?
Nobody jumps out. I saw there are a couple receivers in Miami are out, which hopefully, they're good with their families and stuff. But we'll see what Chan Gailey can do down there with a couple of up-and-coming receivers. I guess Parker finally breaking out last year a little bit. So I guess maybe for Gesicki, we'll see if he can actually make something out of a full season with Chan Gailey in the system. And he seemed to end well last year with Fitz at the helm. So I'm a big Fitz Magic guy, so I'm hoping he does well and rides off into the sunset. But maybe a little bump for Gesicki there, but nothing notable that I'm going out and sending a bunch of offers right away.
Sure. Casey, you got anybody?
I mean, that's basically what I was going to say too. Like, I'm not really, nothing really moved me up on anybody too much. Nothing exciting really happened. Even though we thought maybe there would be something. Nope, not really. So, I guess I would say, hopefully Devontae Parker can funnel some of those targets as well and not just be a fluke from last year. So maybe, who knows?
How about you, Rock?
I'm with them. I mean, there's not that many major names once you get past the Clyde Edwards-Helaire thing. The Miami situation is the biggest because they had multiple receivers opt out. I guess maybe Jakeem Grant could be a really deep sleeper, but I'm not expecting much there. And like Drew already said, it should probably help Gesicki in the slot. Other than that, I have trouble thinking even of any major offensive players that did opt out. Maybe Brandon Bolden that's going to light up the New England backfield for somebody else. Yeah.
Lamar Miller gets those 42 carries.
Yeah, Lamar Miller back from the dead.
Yeah, so the only other one that kind of popped into my head was maybe with Funchess opting out. Like, I mean, he's not a big name, but he was just kind of somebody that, okay, I wasn't sold that Lazard was going to be the wide receiver 2. And I think, and there could even have been an argument that he could have taken away from Sternberger. So that was the only other, maybe effect that this had in my eyes. But going back to Miami, who are you guys higher on between the two wide receivers. Do you like Parker more or are Preston Williams? And let's just say for this year, and so let's do a redraft and then also dynasty.
Dude,
Russ, what do you
like
think?
16 guests. I was about to say, you're going to have to say who's going to talk. Otherwise, we're going to sit here for 3 seconds of silence before 3 people start to talk at the same time.
Well, you just wasted more time going through that whole thing, and I had already said Russ.
You waited. Look, I'm just here to help. Again, I've never listened to the show, so I don't know if you're good at this or not.
Oh, okay, cool.
Preston Williams is my answer for both. Well, actually, that's a lie. Only because I don't know. I know Preston Williams coming off the ACL tear was cleared to at least practice, but yeah, you never want to count on guys coming back in less than 12 months at full, whatever that word is, goodness, man. So I think for I like goodness. So I think I'm going to go with Devontae Parker for redraft, even though I don't necessarily have a lot of faith in 50-year breakouts. But it's easily Preston Williams for dynasty, and the thing is, he's still cheaper. So I really think that it's. Yeah, and I don't feel great. Like, if I could take Preston Williams super late in a redraft league and maybe he rides me to the championship because he'll start coming back on halfway through the season. So I changed my answer. The answer is Preston Williams, both of them.
Okay.
I'm so
How about
confused.
you, Casey?
I don't know what I just heard. Now my head hurts. I'm going to go. Wow. I'm not going to try to change my own opinion on things. I'm just going to go and say, I think, I'm not going to change midway through. Speaking of goodness, I think that Devontae Parker, he'll be goodness for your redraft leagues, and I'd probably take him in dynasty as well. Like Russ was saying, the ACL is a big issue there. That's the flag that's going up for me, and so I'm kind of hesitant. I mean, for the right price, sure, but I don't know. That whole situation down there is an interesting one.
How about you, Drew? What do you think?
Yeah, ACL is tough for a position that requires you to have a change of pace, change of direction. Granted, you know where you're going, so you have a little bit of an advantage there. But I like that Parker's been in the system longer for what it's worth. I would take with Fitz at least starting the season. I like Parker to have a couple of big games at least. So for redraft, pretty easily Parker. For Dynasty, Parker's price has been creeping up, and it's definitely makes me second guess if I'd want to pay for him, whether it was startup or for a trade. So I'd probably go with the youth long term, do a split decision. I'd definitely go with Parker for this year. And then for long term, I'd stash Preston Williams, especially if I have a league that lets me stash a taxi squad for second year players or something like that as well.
Yeah, I agree with Drew pretty much on both counts. I mean, I'm not totally sure about either of them for next year. I mean, last year when they were both playing, I think they were both kind of mid wide receiver threes until Preston got hurt. So, but Parker does have the chemistry with Fitz from the second half breakout last year. And I trust him a little more in 2020, especially like everybody said with the ACL. You never know how that's going to go, especially early in the season. So, but I also agree with pretty much with what Russ and Drew said, especially because he's cheaper. Preston Williams for Dynasty. Plus, there's more upside there just because he's the young guy and it's just going into his second year. So, Devontae for 2020 and Preston for Dynasty with the cheaper price.
I just pulled up DLF ADP, which has August up. Devontae Parker 63, Preston Williams 112.
Oh wow!
Wow.
So
much cheaper.
Yeah, crazy, right?
Yeah. Like,
what about you,
4 rounds
Bill?
later.
What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat with everybody. You know, like consensus wise, like, you know, probably Parker's the better option for redraft, but Preston is definitely who I want dynasty wise. So I'm probably not taking either of them for redraft, to be honest, this year. But if I had to, it would be Parker. But with that, I mean, who knows what the ADP is probably even further away in redraft, right? Between the two. So maybe it might be worth late grabbing Preston Williams and hoping he hits early. I mean, Kupp did well, you know, coming back pretty quickly from ACL last year. So maybe that's just the new for wide receivers. Who knows? But yeah, let's move on to the next news item, and it's the Darius Geist saga. He was waived by Washington, and the news got a little more serious on Monday, you know, with the facts or the allegations coming out of to what he did, getting, you know, with the choking and things like that. So just a question. We'll start with Rocky and go counterclockwise. What are you doing with him? Like, let's start out like, okay, if you have him on your team, what are you going to do with him? Are you, you know, going to move him for just whatever you can get? Are you keeping him? Are you just cutting him? You know, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, with Geis, I would move him for whatever I can get. I probably wouldn't cut him just yet. I doubt he plays in 2020, just because of this, how serious the allegations are, and it's not like he's a can't miss guy. I mean, it's not like it's Tyreek Hill, who's already shown us he could be a star in the league. So, but I would definitely want to get him off my team for anything I can, short of cutting him, because I don't see him ever being a thing now. If he's not playing in 2020, then he's got to contend with a decent running back class, at least at the top next year, and a bunch of potential free agents next year. No matter where he goes, even if he gets a job in 2021, it's hard to see him being anywhere in a significant role. He's going to be splitting time, possibly as the second guy somewhere, if he even gets a job. So I'll take a third. I'll even take a fourth if I can get it. And otherwise, if not, I'll probably just hold him and see what happens. No point in cutting him, I don't think, unless you have really shallow rosters.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really want to have a part of him on my roster either, just because of the uncertainty there. There's always uncertainty with him anyway when it comes to the injury history. So I don't think I had very many shares of him anyway. But if I got to go look at my rosters now, because I would want to trade him away as well, to get, hopefully, because if you drop him, then somebody else is going to end up with him, you know, and potentially getting that from him. So I'd rather trade him and at least get something back in return instead of just like freeing up a roster spot. So that's what I'd do with guys.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I don't have any of him because the injury history and then the Washington medical staff and their history up until this last year pretty much turned me off to anybody recovering from anything. If I did have him, though, I would try to get what I could. I think you're at the low of the lows you're going to get now. So if you just want out, go ahead and take it. Depending on how things pan out over the next few months, maybe you get something. Kareem Hunt got another chance. I mean, all these guys have gotten other chances, right? So it's not like anything, unfortunately, at this point in the NFL is going to be really taking you out of the league for good. But he didn't flash like Kareem Hunt did either. So
that's what I was going to say. Yeah. Kareem Hunt, Tyreek, they at least everybody knew what they were. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would probably just try to free up the roster spot. I would take the late round draft pick or the really upside, rookie or something like that everybody just feels is maybe a throwaway because there's no training camp or shortened training camp this summer, and take that flyer instead.
Yeah. I mean, you guys all said the right thing, so I don't have much to add, but less awful news. The Cowboys just signing Everson Griffin, defensive end that was on the Vikings for a while.
Wow.
Apparently he chose
this good news for Casey, I guess.
Yeah, the Seahawks couldn't get the job done, and he signed with the Cowboys.
Breaking news,
Okay.
thanks.
So I'm
Look
going
at
to cry
that,
a little
live.
well.
For all you
Thank
IDP players out there.
No, I mean, I wasn't
So-
talking.
Just a yes or no answer to this. Okay, if somebody drops him, are you going to try to add him? Are you bidding anything to get him? Brock?
I'm not. No. I have doubts we even see him in the league again. Like I said, if I don't think it's happening in 2020 because I don't think the case will be gone through by then. And even if it is, he'll get a lengthy suspension. And I'm not sure anybody, again, because we've never seen him do much of anything, I don't know that anyone's going to think it's worth the trouble to pick him up.
Yep.
So the only way I'm having my roster if he's already there. I don't even see the point of wasting a couple bucks to pick him up.
Everybody kind of agree?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, I'd throw a $0 bid at him if I was a rebuild that has just a ton of picks and a whole bunch of other dart throws at the end of my bench anyways, but that's about it.
Okay. Okay, so how about the rest of the running back core? Are you really excited with Antonio Gibson like the world is? Or and then also, is there somebody else aside from him that, you know, at least kind of you're keeping an eye on to say maybe this is a guy worth adding to my team, whether it's by trade or waivers? We'll start with Russ.
This has Peyton Barber written all over it. Every time we think some shiny new toy is coming in, Peyton Barber gets most of the running share. I mean, this has happened at least twice in Tampa, and it's just going to happen again between him and Adrian Peterson. Gibson, we think he's something he's not just because there's not one less person in front of him, one person who really wasn't in the way of what Gibson does anyway. So I have a couple of shares of Gibson that I drafted pretty late in drafts, third roundish, and that still is. I mean, he's worth more. He shouldn't be, but I am not any more excited now than I was then because he's still just as raw of a running back. He's still not an every down back, so I don't think Geis leaving does anything for Gibson. I am very glad I drafted Adrian Peterson after drafting Geis in Scott Fishbowl, which is something I rarely handcuff my own running backs, but for some reason felt it was a good move to do with Geis, especially because of the injuries. Not because I saw this coming by any way, shape, or form, but
sure.
But yeah, no, Gibson, he'll catch some balls. I don't know. Like, I don't even see him being Tariq Cohen from his rookie year. Like, I don't think he's even going to do that well. So I think a lot of people are just going to be disappointed with the expectations they have.
Yeah, I think Russ is so right here. Gibson, I think even in college, I don't know if he ever had 100 touch season. So Geis there, Geis not there. The fact that his value is going up so high, the only thing I'd be excited about him is to sell him because it's ridiculous. Dynasty, I posted about this on Twitter the other day. The Dynasty community overreacts to situations so much it's not even funny, and I'd be trying to sell him if I can get. See, some people are valuing in a late first. I take the pick. I take a player in that range. I take a player in the early second range. I'm selling him. I have no interest in anybody in the Redskins backfield if I don't already own him because I think it's going to be a big four-man mess with all four guys. McKissick, Barber, AP, and Bryce Love is probably going to be mixed in there too.
Oh, I forgot about that. Never fade an ex-Seahawk player because they wait until they leave to be awesome. So it's J.D. McKissick season.
But yeah, if you're going to go after anybody, it should be one of the cheapest guys in a backfield like that. I'm not worrying about Gibson at all.
No. Yeah, I would only be excited if I had him and I wanted to trade him away as well. He's being overvalued, and if you can get, good value out of trading him away, I would do that in a heartbeat. Adrian Peterson's going to be the guy who at least really starts the season and gets going. And I mean, sure, things can happen mid-season or whatever, but I really don't feel like that's going to happen. I just feel like Adrian Peterson's going to be that guy. We thought he was, every year you think that, he's going to be gone, but nope, he's not. He still sticks around. And that's who I think starting the season. I don't want anybody else.
Yeah, I don't want anybody if I don't have him.
Yeah.
Speaking of the overreaction, I forgot who posted it on Twitter. There was a parody tweet. Somebody said, I flipped Gibson for CEH.
Oh,
going down that line.
That's great.
That was a good one. Made me laugh. But I got Gibson late in a couple of best balls, which is fine. I'm kicking myself that I didn't get him in a dynasty to be able to flip him for something. But yeah, and that trying to pick who's going to get it each week. Yeah, I guess Peterson's probably the most likely to start, and then who knows? So yeah, I'm out in that whole backfield. I feel so bad for McLaurin. Doesn't even have a settled quarterback. Who knows what Haskins can turn into? So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's like
volume, right?
That's true. He should be just getting everything thrown to him, right? It's like, I mean, if AGG can show anything, man, like he's gonna get peppered too. I mean, it's crazy to think that because who would think like a 4th round draft pick is gonna just all of a sudden show. But he has the makings of, and I'm not gonna say he's Kenny Galladay, but Galladay came in as a late 3rd round pick, and nobody really knew who he was. They just knew he was a big specimen, that he's just physical, and you just hope that he could make the transition from a smaller school. And that's kind of always what I've equated AGG to. And I mean, I think that's worth the risk, of trying to add him in some leagues. Just hope that, something can happen along those lines. But all right, last question in the news. It's not really the news, but Hard Knocks started last night. How many of you watched it?
Am I the only one?
I was about to say, I see no hand.
Right now.
For people listening in the podcast one.
So Drew and I watched it, and yeah, it was cool. But I mean, it was very much just about the COVID. So hopefully next week, it's just fun to see something football related. So like, it was you get the announcers talking, and you just kind of get fired up because there's people out there practicing, and it was kind of cool. A guy got cut and he got really pissed, and like he went into the coach and was like, this is a horse shit basically. And he was really pissed. And then coach goes into the GM and says, hey, keep him on the list. I like the fire of him, so the guy getting mad and, going into the coach and making, letting him know he wasn't happy about getting cut, it might've gotten him another opportunity. So that was kind of cool. That was probably like my favorite part of the whole show. And just to see the whole setup for COVID was just crazy. So the amount of money being spent just for training camp, that even makes me go, man, they're going to have a season come hell or high water, just because there's so much money, in this. And once you see the whole production and all the things that they're doing, it's impressive. And that's just for one location. You got to times 30 because there's 2 locations that are the same, I think, New York and LA. But I mean, that's a lot of money, and that's not even when the season starts. So anyway, let's see what we saw on the timeline. Our first tweet is from John Bauer at the Bauer Club. This is for it's a 14-team Superflex PPR dynasty, and it's a trade. It's either CEH and A-Rob or Derrick Henry and Davante Adams. Let's start with Rocky and go counterclockwise. Which one do you prefer and why?
This is kind of tough. I think the easy answer is you might want to go CH and A-Rob if you're rebuilding, and Derrick Henry and Davante Adams if win now. I'm generally win now, so I'm going to go with Henry and Adams. As we've kind of alluded to, I think CH is kind of ridiculously overvalued right now. I do think he's probably going to be in the low-end RB1 range, but Henry could be in the high-end RB1 range if he goes anywhere near what he did last season. And I think Davante Adams in 2020 has wide receiver 1 overall potential. He's going to be getting targeted like crazy, as we talked about. There's no wide receiver 2 there. And I just think that, like I said, I'm usually more of a win now guy. Most of my teams are trying to win now. I'll take those 2 who I think are going to be better now and still have another year. I still think Henry, even with the contract extension, I think they can't get out till after next year. So I think he's got a good 2 years in him too. And so you get at least 2 years out of those guys anyway, even if they're both a little bit older than the counterparts on the other side.
Everything Rocky just said.
Yeah, right. Right. I mean, Adams is going to get all the targets. Not all the targets, but he's going to get a big majority, the goodness of the majority of said targets. And I mean, Henry, we saw what he did last year, and some people are down saying he can't do it again, but I'll take my chances on that.
True.
True.
All right.
True.
So this was a bad decision by me to pick this one. I think we're all, I mean, it's very, it's 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers. So, I mean, it's one of those trades that I typically am not making. But, they're just so close. Like A-Rob and Adams are pretty similar. I mean, of course, we all agree that Adams is probably going to get, A, better passes, and B, more volume. So, I mean,
But yeah, I
agree.
do love A-Rob too. He's
Mhm.
also going to be a target monster this year as well. But he doesn't. The difference is he has Mitch Trubisky / Nick Foles throwing to him, and Adams has Aaron Rodgers. So.
Well, I mean, you say they're close, but Devontae Adams ADP of 9, Allen Robinson 37.
Yeah, A-Rob was a big pickup for me all offseason just because of that. Like, it just seems like he's undervalued because everybody, like, he has never had a good quarterback, like, throwing to him. Not since college. Like, he didn't even have a good quarterback in college. So he's a local guy from Detroit, and probably his best quarterback was in high school.
High school, yeah.
Yeah, and they're not close to maybe an ADP, but I think they'll be close-ish in production. I mean, A-Rob was a wide receiver 1 last year, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, I think, 8.
8, yeah.
And I mean,
So they're going to be
Adams hurt,
closer in production
so-
than that ADP, I think.
Yeah, I think they'll both be
Sure.
top 12.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep. So it probably also it was one PPR. PPR. So I mean, yeah, it's all a matter how much you believe in CEH, I guess, right?
Yeah, you'd have to add a
Apparently,
depth
yeah.
piece there and
Yeah.
like that.
Apparently,
I guess if
we're
you
not-
value
we're not
him,
buying
CEH,
into the-
If you're buying CEH at a top 5 price, that means you think he's going to go up, right? Like, do we really think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be a top 4
No.
dynasty asset? Like that's the only thing I could think of that we're saying right now as a community.
That's what I was going to say. If you value him at that ADP, that trade's closer, but I don't think any of us here do. So,
Yeah, it was interesting because some people are going, well, I was as high on Barkley a few years ago. Well, can we really compare Barkley and CEH?
Oh, I'm so glad
Coming out-
Brian is not here for that statement.
I mean, that's my point. Like, somebody had mentioned, I just read that on Twitter within the last few hours. They're like, I'm high on, I have CEH at 105, and that's exactly where I had Barkley. And they were like proud of it and kind of saying like, that's how much I believe in CEH. And I'm like, man, I am not where you are. Like, just
Man, you had Barkley too low.
Yeah. Well, and that was like consensus pretty much almost.
Yeah.
yeah, and Barkley, the year he came out, was the consensus 101 in January.
Yeah.
CEH was the rookie RB5 to a lot of people until he got drafted by the Chiefs, and now we're making him the overall pick 5. It's ridiculous.
Yep.
Yep. That's I'm gonna use that argument towards you later. All right. So next tweet is Robbie Jeffries at NFL Robbie. This is for redraft. So choose one at their current ADP. Kelsey in the first round, Kittle in the second round, Mark Andrews in the third, or Zach Ertz in the fourth. And tell me why you picked that person. Rocky.
It's always Rocky first. Jeez.
I'll go first. Stop talking. The answer is Ertz because I think the 4 of them. I'm gonna lie, man. The efficiency in Baltimore, I get that it's going to be high just because everyone's going to be terrified of Lamar running. But man, it was insane. Man, his touchdown percentage was like over 9. It's like ridiculous. I can't see. It'll stay higher than the average, I'm sure, but that high, I don't think so. So like, man, I think Andrews takes a little bit of a step back, but I still think Ertz has a chance at being the tight end 1, just like he does every single year. I think there's a chance that, San Francisco, if Ayuk does decently, Debo comes back and he's fine, they may pass the ball a little bit more. Well, we'll spread it around a little bit more when they do pass it. So, Kittle will also be uber efficient because he's freaking awesome. But still, that's a 2-round difference where you're probably not going to get that different of production. And Kelsey in the first, man, I get it. He easily can be tight end 1. He's on the best offense in the league, but a first-round pick on the tight end, I just don't care. You can't really convince me to do that.
True.
I'll go. I'm with Russ. Well, I'm with Russ on not Kelsey. Kelsey's the easy one for me to rule out at a first-round price, but I would go with Kittle in the second round. I think those 2 are above the other 2, and so Kittle's a little cheaper, so I'll go with him. Andrews has the volume concerns. Both with the Baltimore passing volume and his snap percentage has not been great. we expect some more with Hurst out, with Hurst gone, but and Ertz, I get what Russ is saying, and the 2-round difference is nice. I just trust Kittle a little more. I think the Eagles do like to spread it around when they can. It's just everybody keeps getting hurt every year, which may happen again because Alshon and Deshaun are back.
Mhm.
They did add Rager though, and I'm as an Eagles fan crossing my fingers for some J-Jaw improvement, and Sanders and Goddard. So I still trust Kittle more. So even with the 2-round difference, but I definitely think it comes down to those two. I'm sorry, I think Bill was going to throw it to Drew, and I stepped right on top of that. So Drew, go ahead.
No problem. For this year, I'm on board with Ertz in the 4th. I think the value's there. You can do the cop out of, is it a late 4th versus an early 4th? But either way, relative to each other, I'll take Ertz in the 4th versus the other ones. And I don't think it's not particularly close. I like my options in the top 36, 40 picks before Ertz. To get some other positions filled first, especially at running back, and go there.
Yeah,
All
and I
about
don't
that
even
opportunity
like.
cost.
I don't like to draft any tight end in any of these rounds, but since I have to pick, the Ertz. I think Ertz has the chance of busting just because a lot of his production comes from all the injuries that happen with the wide receivers, and every year that's the story. So I don't see that changing though this season. I with the age of the wide receivers, that not the rookie, but the ones that they have there, I think I don't exactly know where I'm trying to get with this, but the injury situation is the reason I'd go with Ertz. I do think that the Kittle in the 2nd is, maybe every now and then to mix it up, I might take him there in that spot. But the Ertz pick is the one that I think I would go with.
It doesn't surprise me that I'm the one that disagrees. I'm much more of an elite tight end guy than I know definitely Russ is, and it sounds like Casey or Drew are. But I'm a guy that owns a lot of Kittle, Kelsey, and Andrews in a lot of my dynasty leagues for that very reason.
Come on, Eagles fan. I own a bunch of Ertz.
I own a little bit of Ertz too.
I think Ertz is like just a killer value, like in general. Like right now, I think he's really like kind of people are down on him because everybody's expecting Goddard to jump over him, but they play completely different roles, in my opinion. And Goddard is your traditional big, tight end. He's going to score more touchdowns, whereas Ertz is like that big slot, and he's going to get all the touch or all the volume, but he's just not going to get those touchdowns. And so, I'm kind of where everybody else is. Like Ertz is my pick just because they're already running into issues at wide receiver this year. Alshon, we don't know if he's even going to be on the pup to start the season. And, they were just talking about who's that wide receiver that played a little bit last year. They're talking about him being in the rotation already. And it's
Greg Ward.
Greg Ward. And
hey, it's
so,
J-Jaw season, baby.
So, that just shows you like even the depth is still not there. So, Ertz is still going to get a ton of targets, I think, just because
he's the warm blanket for Wentz, man. Bails him out so often. He gets him on a roll.
Yeah, every year we try and say why Ertz isn't going to be a thing, and I absolutely played into that as well. I remember before last year just being like, nope, Ertz is worth too much money. They're going to cut him. They don't have enough cap room to rework it. They're screwed. He's gone. Goddard's the guy. And Howie Roseman's just like, the salary cap doesn't matter.
No one here in Philly ever thought, or I heard that narrative for like a year and a half, and no one here in Philly ever thought Ertz was getting cut.
I will never question Roseman again, ever.
And question, Rock, what is the consensus in Philly? Is Ertz going to get re-signed, or are they going to let Ertz go?
I think they recently did extend him or something, didn't they?
Last year, before last season.
Yeah, and I think I'm sorry, Bill.
Oh, I was interrupting you, so it's my bad. But they were. I'm
going to interrupt both of you just because I think it's funny that you were interrupting him.
I do think there hasn't been a lot of talk about it around here, but I think there actually may be a chance that he does. They are ridiculously over the cap next year. Howie Roseman is usually a genius with the cap. I think it's something like $75 million They're currently over the projected cap for next year. So I
Close
think there
enough.
is a chance that it could finally happen that he does actually get cut, like people have been saying for 3 years. But there's not been a lot of talk either way about it around here. But I could definitely see it happening because they have Goddard, because he's fairly pricey, and because they need to cut a lot of cap space next year. But like Russ said, Haley might figure something else out.
I just think they'd be too afraid to let a guy who has stayed healthy as a pass catcher walk away.
That's
Because
true.
That's such a problem for them.
Yes.
And either they're going to spend the first 3 draft picks next year on pass catchers, which, man, I don't think anybody in Philly would really be all that upset about that. But like,
It'd be better than picking a backup quarterback.
hey, he's the Taysom Hill 2.0, baby. You got to be happy about that, right?
Yeah,
In a
can't
second, no, not at all. But I get having to if they have to. I think they will try whatever they can to keep him there because again, he's the binky for Carson Wentz. He stays healthy, and until they have more dependable people around Wentz, I think they need whatever they can get.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Like for all the teams, kind of what Rocky's saying, where they're so high over the cap. There's just so many, like, so many teams that are gonna be over the cap because the cap drops right to like 175 or something. Like there's gonna be so many teams just cutting players. Like it's almost gonna be like Madden, like when you can draft your whole team, and because there's gonna be so many free agents that have been cut next year. I think it's going to be crazy.
The cap going
it's
down.
going to be bad for a lot of
year.
teams, but the Eagles were over the cap, even if it was going up as projected. They are in ridiculous situation next year.
So they would just have to extend some people and make that first year really a real low hit. It's probably like what
yeah,
they'll need
a lot
to
of
do.
restructuring. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's head to another tweet from Frank Amarante at F Amarante TFJ. Leonard Fournette will not finish in the top 25 running backs. Who's going to bet me here? What do you guys think? Is anybody betting him?
I don't know what the bet is, but I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll bet on that he finishes in the top 25.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think I get the point. Like, do you get the point? Like, I mean, regardless of of course, we all agree that he's going to be finishing as at least an RB2, but like, how concerned are you with him? Like, do you think that he's just going to, or how about this? Do you think he's going to get just used and abused this whole year? Or do you think they're going to trade him? Or, how do you think he's going to be handled this year? Russ.
If they're smart, they run him into the ground. And let's be fair. I was about to say, and if their team does bad, but they are bad. So there's no real if. And yeah, I was going to, Zach Reed, Tasker 713 threw in the chat. Russell, who's the best at jumping and interrupting everyone in a podcast? Outhouse. Yeah, there's if Fournette is healthy, he's a top 15 to 20 running back easy, just because he's going to get 400 carries. I mean, I like Minshew. He's all right. I like a couple of their pass catchers, but let's face it, he's still that offense. He's not going to catch 70 passes or whatever it was. Like he had like 100 something. He had like 100 targets last year, which I don't think is going to happen again. But there's nothing else there. If they're smart, they deal him to a contender for you'd be lucky if you get like a second or a third, since his contract's over, and I mean he'll have to sign somewhere else, so they're not going to get that much for him. But take what you can get, especially because they're rebuilding. And man, I love Minshew, but I really see them getting Fields or Lawrence next year. So I think they're going to go full on in. So you might as well get whatever picks you can.
I mean, the one narrative you can make to try and back up what this guy is saying is the receptions, like Russ said, are definitely going to come down. So that's going to eat into it. The team's going to be bad, so they're going to be probably not rushing a ton, and his receptions come down. And he doesn't specify that this is barring injury. And we know Fournette's had an issue with injuries. So if all that happens, then you can maybe see he doesn't, especially if he misses like 6 games. He didn't specify that this is a healthy Fournette is going to finish outside the top 25. So that's the one argument I can make for it. But otherwise, I think Russ is right. They're going to run him as much as they can, as long as they can, and it's almost impossible unless he gets hurt. I think that he doesn't finish as an RB2 at least.
Yeah, I like that. I like what Rocky's saying. That's like the only scenario, but like, yeah, he really thought about it and got to the core. But yeah, if he gets hurt, sure. But I think we're all in agreement that, yeah.
Yeah, anytime anybody makes a comment like that, I immediately remove injuries because that's like just a ridiculous. You can't use that as the argument, right? Like,
Right.
so
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's always that one person.
Oh, 100% there is. Drew, what do you think? You got any opinions on Fournette this year?
I double down on that bet. Yeah, I think he's just gut shot. I think he's top 15, top 16. The volume that he should get, and I don't know. I don't pretend to know what a GM is thinking, but with the uncertainty this year, I feel like you keep whoever's around that knows the system that can suit up and play for you Sunday. So unless you're going to get a really good value and picks back in the rebuild, who knows what they'll do with him. But even then, if he goes to a contender, then it's even more likely that he's going to be a top 15 or 20 running back. So.
Yeah, that's Zachary made a good point. Like, the only issue potentially would be that the offense is changing. Jay Gruden's, is it Jay Gruden? Is down there now as the offense coordinator, and they brought in Chris Thompson, who, that's just his receiving back. I mean, he's loved him and groomed him since the Washington drafted him. So, him being there is gonna definitely gonna hit the receptions. I mean, there's no way that Fournette's gonna get 100 targets this year.
Yeah, for as many games as Thompson plays, though.
I was about to say, speaking of not being able to stay healthy,
and that's
Chris
legit
Thompson.
too. Yeah, like he's always that guy you get at the end that you hope you get some games out of him because exactly. But yeah, I've always liked him. He's always been a guy at the end of my bench, so maybe I'm biased, but
yeah, that's how I feel too. He's one of those surprising guys that will get you a couple of games every season, and when he's on, he's on. So who knows?
Anybody else have any of those low key like receiving backs that you like to have on your roster? Anybody? No,
Antonio Gibson.
James White is perennially underrated.
Yeah, he is.
Duke Johnson. I like Duke Johnson.
Yep.
But I mean, both Johnsons really this year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a nice.
Both the D Johnsons. You'll never know which one's out there.
I know. I wrote an article about them the other day, and I was like, "Oh my god, my brain is about to explode. I cannot keep it straight."
How's that humble brag? Casey writes articles.
Writing articles is, I guess, if you want to call it writing articles, it's more like here's a bunch of crap on a piece of
now she
the
has to be
internet.
humble. See,
Yeah,
look at
now
that.
being
She's
humble.
got this down pat.
Here you go, guys. I try.
Duke
How about that?
Duke Johnson's interesting just because like last year his value got so high when he got traded to Houston, and then now I think like people, it's kind of funny, like especially in Dynasty, how like if somebody gets super hyped up and then they don't meet somebody, the like groupthink standards of what they expected, like that player just becomes undervalued. Like it's just the weirdest thing how like it goes super high before we know that the situation's good for them, like Duke Johnson in particular. And then now, like last year, he didn't meet everybody's expectations. So now people think he's worth like a 3rd round pick now. And he still scored pretty decently last year. It just he wasn't like a bell cow that some people expected. So it's kind of funny how that just works.
And he's interesting this year too. I mean, he's only got a 28-year-old injury-prone David Johnson in front of him. I don't even know who the 3rd-string running back is. I mean, if David Johnson gets hurt, Duke Johnson becomes very, very interesting.
They'll find a way to cover him up. Their hashtag free Duke is free Duke Johnson's going to live on forever.
And Zach from the chat brought some stats for us. 42 receptions for Thompson last year. You got to think he gets more than that in Jacksonville this year. Yeah, and Thompson was out for quite a bit last year, so that's pretty impressive to put up 42 receptions. So yeah, you'd think that he'd probably be good for 60 plus.
Assuming health.
I mean, he wasn't healthy last year,
Correct.
so I mean,
True.
take
Yeah.
what you can get out of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. This is just a preference thing, I guess. And for redraft, Fantasy Footbub at Fantasy Footbub, who would you rather have in redraft? Allen Robinson or DJ Moore? And we don't know if it's PPR or not. Let's just assume it is. Let's start with Casey.
I'd probably go with Allen Robinson. In my opinion, he had issues with the quarterback and still ended up doing excellent last season. And I really don't see that changing. His quarterback situation is still not going to be the best, but I think he's still going to put up around the same numbers that he did last year. I think he's reliable. He's always reliable. So you don't have to worry from week to week whether or not you're going to get something out of him. So, I mean, that's based on not having any other information. I mean, I don't know what the format is and everything, but yeah.
All right. How about you, Drew?
Gut shot is probably I'd probably rather have DJ Moore on my team if I was picking. I mean, he produced really well in the first 2 years. Pretty young when he broke out, so he's got a lot going for him. Similar to A-Rob and some of the other guys that seem to be pretty set to perform no matter who's throwing them the ball. I mean, last year he did okay still with the rotation in Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what Teddy does this year. The offense they put in hopefully is a little bit more fast paced, up tempo. Their defense sucks, so they'll be throwing a lot. Whereas Chicago maybe can rely on their defense a little bit more and have some lower scoring games where A-Rob doesn't have to do as much as often. But at value, assuming that you get a 2-round break on A-Rob over DJ Moore, I could definitely see taking the value on A-Rob.
Mm-hmm.
Rastafarian.
Nice. Like if it was PPR, like it's really weird. Like, cause like Drew said, like if we were drafting, I would take DJ Moore over Allen Robinson, but I think the answer is Allen Robinson. If it was PPR, I'd feel better about DJ Moore, but I know he had 4 touchdowns last year. Allen Robinson has double-digit upside every single year. Mm-hmm. So if there's no PPR, then it's definitely A-Rob. But yeah, I love Allen Robinson, so I'm gonna stick with that as my answer. But and we know Rocky's gonna say DJ Moore, so we have to let him stand on an island.
I was just gonna say that if anybody listening to this listens to the Junkies, they know my choice. DJ Moore is basically my fantasy football man crush. So Drew made a lot of the points I would have made. The bad defense. I love the Joe Brady hire I've mentioned before. I think he's going to help improve that offense a lot. The other thing Drew mentioned was he might be the one of the few players that's had a worse QB situation last year than Allen Robinson, mm-hmm. and he still produced. So yeah, DJ Moore is my guy. I think he has maybe not wide receiver, but one potential, but top 5 potential, especially if it is PPR. And I think that those TD, there's no reason he can't score more TDs. I made this point somewhere before that I think Chris Godwin, they have very similar build as Chris Godwin, who scored 16 touchdowns the last 2 years. I think the low TD production is partially a product of just bad offenses the last couple of years. So, yeah, DJ Moore's my guy. I'm going DJ Moore here, even though I do love Allen Robinson, as I said earlier.
Yeah, he had a record CMC year last year too that probably hampered a little bit of his opportunity.
Right.
Yeah, I'm kind of I'm right there with you guys with my first thought is A-Rob. I just think, like Casey said, what you're getting from him. And so it's just a matter of risk tolerance, I guess, right? You want to project that that Carolina's defense is just going to be piss poor, and that's just going to cause the offense to have to pass all the time, which is going to increase the volume. And then you believe that, DJ Moore is the superior talent or more dynamic. I get it. So I think that's really what it's down to, but I would probably lean A-Rob, just depending on, I guess, I would rather take somebody. I'd rather take a running back, probably where I would need to take DJ Moore in a redraft. So, that's kind of that's more team build type of thing.
You taking DJ Moore in the second or Kittle?
Me?
Rock. Yeah. Because you're gonna have to take them both in the second.
I'm taking DJ Moore. He's my man's.
He's your
So Ertz in the fourth.
Ertz in the yep. DJ Moore in the second. Ertz in the fourth.
Yeah, we brought that back, and I got you on my side.
It's a consensus. All right, last one. Len at Lenny AM3. Which side? It's a 1 QB PPR dynasty. Tyreek Hill or DeAndre Swift and a 21 first. No projections. Let's start with Casey.
I'm gonna go with Tyreek Hill on this one, just because of the talent there. Again, you know what you're getting with him. The speed factor is always a big thing for me. In previous years, I had been lower than I probably should have been on him, and this year I'm finally coming around to wanting more shares of Tyreek Hill. So yeah, that's that. I mean, when I saw that was immediately who I picked.
How about you, Rock?
Casey's reading the show sheet. Still, look at her.
Well, I
just
mean,
showing off.
I grazed over it.
That's better.
You know,
better than
I'm like
Rust.
I told him I wasn't going to look at it.
I'm with Casey. I keep saying this, but Tyreek has that same upside as some of the other wide receivers you're talking about, Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
And I've been a guy who's been lower on Swift in the community all along, basically. So that makes it a little easier for me. I mean, not that I don't like Swift, but even beforehand, I had him behind Taylor and Dobbins, and right there with Akers. So, and then the drafting by Detroit obviously makes him a little shakier, at least for 2020. So yeah, it's not bad value, but 2 first. But I'd want a little more for Tyreek if I was going to move him, so I'll take Tyreek.
Russ?
Yeah, same. I mean, I like Swift.
Right.
I like the first because there's a lot of great receivers, quarterbacks, and running backs. 1 or 2 good running backs coming out, but still, Tyreek's just worth more than that is what it comes down to. If you're like Har and you don't like the risk, but you somehow ended up with Tyreek on your team, I get wanting to get out of him, but you have to get something. Like, throw me I was about to say like Marvin Jones, but he's still not worth what he should be. But like some guy that's worth like an early second that you know is going to give you low wide receiver 2 numbers. Something that's like a safe point getter needs to be added to that for me to think about trading Tyreek away for that.
Drew?
Yeah.
Ditto.
Okay. So
Yeah, that's easy.
part of the reason I brought this trade up was that the poll was 60-40. So that means 4 out of 10 people would be willing to take the Swift and a first side. So, and it being a 1 QB, that even lessens the value of that first.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just something that if you're in leagues that, I mean, that's worth making an offer of something similar to that to get Tyreek. You basically have, a 1 in 3 chance of getting it. And that's a pretty solid opportunity.
Yeah.
And,
Unfortunately, because of what I just said, I don't know much Swift, but or I'd be making.
I mean, but it doesn't have to be Swift. It can be somebody,
True.
Maybe you have Akers. Maybe you have, somebody of that ilk.
Right.
Yeah.
So Zach Reed says Swift's the guy that you buy now and then sell in 3 weeks when everybody's hyping him up. And that's pretty much it. Like, I mean, I'm a Lions fan, so like I have a bias to like Swift probably more than most. And I mean, this trade is so still the Tyreek side by quite a bit that it's pretty crazy. But back to to Carolina,
Mhm.
Zach asked a question in the chat. Is anyone else concerned that Bridgewater threw for fewer than 250 yards in 4 of 6 games last year? And that's with the New Orleans high-powered pass-heavy offense, because and that's similar to like what Brady would be bringing to Carolina. So, do you feel like Bridgewater is a big upgrade to Kyle Allen from last year?
The answer is yes.
Or-
I'm just going to jump in anyway. That defense is just so bad, and the Saints defense is very good. So they're going to need
Yep.
to throw the ball. And honestly, I said that the Jaguars are going to have their chance at Fields or Lawrence. So are the Panthers. So I expect this team to be bad, and they're going to throw the ball. And I think if they're smart, let me just say, they realize that they can get Fields or Lawrence next year. So they're not going to kill McCaffrey this year. They shouldn't. They paid that dude a ton of money. And I mean, he's still young. He still has, man, like I think I'm done with this. Get rid of running backs at their second contract. I think it's just kind of ridiculous at this point.
Mhm.
So, like, I mean, are we gonna start saying McCaffrey's not good anymore because he just got paid? I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous because he's the 101, so you should be selling him, but that's not really what I'm going at. Like, he's still going to be very, 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 very good for the next 3
Mhm.
years. So, if they're smart, they keep him nice and easy. I mean, drop his snap percentage to like 80 instead of 99 and get him for 2 years with Justin Fields. And God, what that offense could be. So, yeah, I think Teddy Bridgewater is much better than Kyle Allen. I think they're going to have to throw the ball more. So, yes, I do think it's much better.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. And
Yep.
to Russ's point about McCaffrey too, I mean, he's had 124 targets each of the last 2 years, and he is a special player, but there's only, I think, a handful of guys over the last 10, 15 years at running back who've gotten that many targets. Now, like I said, we know McCaffrey's an outlier himself, but to expect him to keep up that production and the rushing production is kind of crazy. So I definitely think that Teddy's going to get some volume, and that will lead to more yards. And like I said, I'm huge on the Brady hire just because of what he did at LSU last year with a bunch of guys that were basically nobodies until 2020 or 2019.
Yeah. And when Teddy Bridgewater was in New Orleans, he could win games not having to throw the ball. So why risk something? And, Drew Brees is coming back. Why don't you just try to win a few games, hold yourself over until he comes back? And this year, like you guys have all been saying, he's going to have to throw the ball. So I'm not. Yeah, he's better than what they had last year.
Yeah, he's definitely better than Kyle Allen was a rookie last year, right? So you got a guy that's been in the league or his second year. So yeah, you got a guy who's been in the league for 2 or 3 times as long as their other quarterback. And you have, in my opinion, you have guys that are better after the catch in Carolina too than in New Orleans.
Good
So there's added yardage there that I think he'll add beyond just whatever his air yards are.
I believe there were also a couple Will Greer games in there, weren't there?
There were.
One, I think, right? And then
Just
that was just so
one?
bad
Okay.
we never tried
It's
again.
so bad. Okay.
Yeah. It may not even have been one whole one.
That's who it was.
But so that obviously makes Bridgewater a buy in Superflex leagues, yeah.
For a
Oh.
competing team that wants to win this year and doesn't want to
Yeah.
and isn't concerned with having a dead asset on their hands afterwards. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's the same as Breeze, right? But probably
pretty
for
much,
a cheaper
yeah.
price.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think he's a major buy. We talked about this last week. We did a bold prediction show, and Teddy. My bold prediction was that Teddy finishes as a top 8 QB.
Oh,
Which-
damn.
I went bold.
Yeah, that's
I hope
bold.
you're right.
That's
I
his
mean,
ceiling. We said on
I was
the
going to give you
show.
top 20,
That's
sure. Yeah.
spicy.
Yeah. Yeah. And for all the reasons we've been
The panel
talking
goes
about,
crazy.
supposed
Guess
to
that's
be
the point of
bold
those, right?
predictions.
I mean,
And
this
like
is
we said
the-
on the show, I think that's his ceiling. I mean, the whole point of it is to make exaggerations on guys that you feel
Mhm.
strongly on, and I think he's a major. We looked it up at the time on the show last week, and his ADP was QB 26. I literally think there's, barring injury, there's no way he doesn't return investment on QB 26. I mean, I think there's no chance he's not at least a high end QB2, in my opinion.
And I guess this is the year to make bold predictions like that, because if there's not a season, then you could just be like,
There you go.
I mean,
You blame it all on Corona.
He
no
would've-
matter
yeah,
what.
the coronavirus. That's all the coronavirus's fault.
Yeah, if he had more games, he would have been QB8.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe he is because he only played 4 weeks.
Yeah. So many different situations.
So you're talking about Brady's offense and how you're excited about that, Rock. Does that make you higher on like, do you like Burrow? Is Burrow a player that you're like? How would you say you are compared to like the market value of him?
No, yeah, I'm pretty much where everybody else is on Burrow. I do worry a little bit about a lot of those guys. Ray GQ has made this point that he, until Brady got there, none of those guys were considered top prospects. But just, I mean, what Burrow did was historic, and I have to think some of that's him, not just Joe Brady's offense. That was pretty much the best offense in college football ever. So I think some of that has to do. Plus, he has some rushing upside, which helps too. So I think he's being valued. What is like around QB 10 or something like that. I'm fine with that on Burrow. I think that's his ADP somewhere in there.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, I'm pretty much where everyone else is. I thought he was 101 in Superflex, even with my love for Taylor and with Hilaire being up there. So I'm pretty much with everyone else. Yeah.
Anybody different than market on Burrow?
I don't know. I think I'm higher in Dynasty at least. I don't know. Screw it. I'm gonna double down in redraft also, because man, I love every piece of that offense except for their line, which hopefully if they stay healthy they'll be fine. Because I think the problem for the past 2 years is they've lost 2 offensive linemen almost every single year. I mean, they have a rookie who was out with tore a pec in the preseason, in training camp and stuff like that. They traded for Corey Glenn, I can't remember his name, hurt the entire year, Whitworth hurt. So, I mean, if that offensive line stays healthy, I mean, AJ Green is still freaking amazing. You know how I'm sure anyone listening, if they've heard my voice, they know how I feel about T. Higgins. I love Tyler Boyd. Joe Mixon is freaking great. And, I mean, remember what LSU was before Joe Brady. I mean, they were Leonard Fournette. Like, they ran. That's all they did. They didn't throw the ball. So we don't know what Joe Burrow could have been. And so, yes, no one knew who these guys were before that season. But an offense coordinator can't throw 60 touchdowns. Like, that can't just be game plan. Like, there's skill, there's guts to that. And maybe it doesn't translate right away. But if he has the balls to throw it, he has 2 to 3 guys in AJ Green, T. Higgins, and if they put Auden Tate on the field, that can go over guys to get the ball anyway. So I'm all about. I agree with Rock. He was my 101, even over those running backs. So I'm going to call myself higher than consensus on Joe Burrow.
Or Casey, what are you thinking?
I mean, I think I'm pretty much with the consensus on it. I mean, not much more to say than what's already been said. You got to be a little concerned with the whole COVID thing and being a rookie and everything, but I'm barely concerned with that. I really don't think that moves it up or down any for me.
Yeah, I'm probably right in line. I might be on the lower end of consensus. I mean, there's got to be, like Russ said, there's got to be some talent to execute on whatever the game plan is. So those results don't just happen by themselves. And I heard somebody else saying too, it's a whole summer where you're basically locked in your house with nothing to do but study. So, hopefully some of these rookies are taking advantage of that. And maybe there are fewer opportunities to go out and make stupid decisions and hopefully lock in and have meetings one-on-one, stuff like that. So, I like him.
Yeah, I'm where Russ is. I'm a little higher than most. I've bought in. Like, I am completely believing the hype. I just think that, like, I like the swagger, so I'm probably buying into that a little bit. I like that.
I take it you're not worried about the small hands.
Well, didn't we have this conversation? I think Mahomes has smallish hands too. So, but like, I think that, he is just, I mean, he started doing pretty well last year towards the end of the season as well. Or I'm sorry, in 2018 at the end of the season, Burrow was doing pretty well. And, I think that just all these players just matured at the right time. Plus Brady is he was a NFL coach coaching in college. So, I mean, you have to give him that. And, they just had so much talent on that team. But I buy in. I mean, the quarterback's still got to be good. We've seen a lot of teams that have a ton of talent. If they don't have the quarterback, they're just not, where they are. And to be just so epically efficient and amazing last year, I've just bought in, and he's the one guy that I think could completely outkick his ADP and surprise people for redraft. Just like he's one of the guys that I don't mind adding as like a late round guy in redraft and see how things kind of happen, you know, for the first like quarter of the season or something like that. But that is everything on the list. Russ, you have a new podcast out.
Oh,
Ish.
yeah. I guess I do.
Tell me about it.
Surprise,
Well,
surprise.
Yeah, right?
I have a problem.
Is it this one that you're
leaving
taking over? All the other ones that you're taking over? I don't know. I can't keep track anymore.
I'm Dynasty House, and I have a podcasting problem. So Stompy and I have decided that it's ridiculous that we don't podcast anymore with each other. So what we're going to do is at least once a week get together during lunchtime, because I'm still working from home. He's still working from home. So why the hell not, right? So just quick half hour, super informal. Just honestly, on Mondays, we're going to be like, what day? Okay. And then on that day, we're going to be like, what do you feel like talking about? Like no planning whatsoever. And pretty much it's just going to be Stompy talking and me just being like, kind of pushing it along a little bit, because I tried to talk during this the first episode that we did today, and it didn't work very well. So I think that's just going to be the dynamic.
I was just gonna say, I don't think that's gonna be much of a problem to get Stompy talking.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Russ, you need to preserve your voice for the 27,000
Yeah,
other
the other
podcasts
podcasts, yeah.
that you're making. Yeah, we don't want that golden voice to just crack out on you while you're.
Yeah, I got to get working on another DGN. By the way, it's been a while since I created another name game. Got to get on that. Thanks for making me feel bad about it.
So, all right. Do you want to tell anybody? Everybody knows who Dynasty Outhouse is, right?
DAP Network, baby.
Oh yeah, DAP Network. Subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube, and you'll get to hear Russ on every show.
Damn straight.
Rock.
First of all, I'm a little disappointed. I'd heard through the grapevine there was going to be karaoke on here, but and I was looking forward to Casey and I after listening to Dynasty Game Night, the Outhouse has a lovely singing voice. So,
Is there any Disney in the catalog?
But yeah, I'm Rocky Petrella at Dynasty FF Addict on Twitter. You can find me there. You can, my DMs are always open. I host the Dynasty Junkies podcast on the awesome DAP Network. We're at Dynasty Junkies Pod. My co-host is Dustin Church. He was hoping to hop on tonight, but couldn't make it. He's at Dynasty Junkie FF. Give us a listen. We talk about all sorts of stuff. We do. We find trades for people. We talk commish stuff. We do strategy, all sorts of stuff. So it's a pretty good show. Hope you listen to it. And thanks for having me on, Bill. It's been fun.
Yeah, for sure. And our special guest of the night, Casey. Tell us what you're working on. Tell us where to find you.
Thank you. I love this red carpet treatment I'm getting as a special guest. You can find me on Twitter at @DKCKSome. I write humble brag for Fighting Chance Fantasy. I started a podcast recently with my friend JJ called Fantasy Football JK. It's available on all platforms, I believe. There's a Russ episode, surprise, surprise. Dynasty Outhouse was on with us. So
I was the second guest. That's still a little sore spot for me.
I'm sorry, but I did tell Russ. I told Outhouse that when I make another podcast and create my own new brilliant idea that's in the works, yeah, he could be the first guest. Bobby jumped in. Bobby Wreck Fantasy, not. Yeah. So anyway, we had the good Bobby on as our first guy, and Russ was our second. You can follow that podcast at F Football JK.
Nice, and it was totally appreciate you coming on. It was awesome. And
Yeah.
Drew, tell us where we can find you.
I hang out and just scroll through my Twitter feed looking for things to laugh at @dr_pra. Get to hang out in a fun chat with a lot of these folks in some of the eliminators this year that John Bosch put together. So it's been fun to have some more conversation and pretend that football's happening, even though it wasn't. So thank you guys for having me back. It's been a pleasure to listen in and have some fun with you guys tonight.
Yeah, man, it was awesome. I appreciate you guys helping lighten the load for me because I am not the person who likes to talk all the time. So this was more work than I like to put in for this podcast. So you guys really helped me out.
Yeah, I think even with us here, this is the most you talked probably in any episode, Bill.
It probably is. But anyway, for everybody that was in the chat, thank you so much. If you're watching on YouTube, please remember to subscribe and hit the bell, and it'll let you know when we are going live every week. And if there's any DAP Network shows popping on, you'll get that bell as well. And if you're listening on podcasts, thank you so much. Subscribe, rate, and review if you get the chance. We'd really appreciate it. And for that, we are out of here. Late.